In this scene, I'm using two different methods to strip the stick. Right there, I'm using a floor scraper, which works pretty good, but it leaves a lot more gashes in the stick. Machete makes it super easy, and it also leaves less gashes and makes it stick a lot smoother. And it's just way easier to work with. The pine cone roof. So basically you want to make sure to get a nice glob of glue on the very back part, not the front, and then place it. Don't take too long making them even at first. Take a little tool and at the end go back and adjust if needed. Just make sure that you add enough wood glue to the pine cone that it's going to stick. But once these dry, these things are gonna be dry. They're not going anywhere. If you want them to, you're gonna have to rip them off. But don't go. After you attach your first log, you'll use that log as a guide. Pick your next log up and a pencil, mark that, and then attach your four edges. After you attach your four edges, just continue the process. But just do the little bit of the side and then do the front. After you do the front, you'll stop so you can attach some logs behind the front part, and then I'll show you the process of cutting the hole in the front. Those sticks that you put behind that hole are gonna be a little bit smaller than the ones you use to attach to the sides. When you pre-drill your holes, make sure that you're going dead center in whatever you're pre-drilling so your screw doesn't crack through. Now I'm gonna attach my roof, and when I do so, I'm making sure that the roof is even all the way around. Now I'm about to shoot a few nails through. One of my nails goes through and doesn't hit the log, so now I'm gonna take some pliers and just take that nail out. So it definitely helps to cut more than just 4 trees up. I would probably do double, and that way you'll have such a variety of different size logs that once you get to the end, it'll be so easy to find a log that'll fill that space perfectly. On the thinner logs, you can use your brad nailer, but on the bigger logs, make sure to use a screw. I'm taking some small wire snips and clipping the head off of a nail that was sticking up, and then I'm taking a smooth-headed hammer and tapping the nails down flush. Don't use a hammer with indentions, use a smooth head one so it doesn't leave marks all over your birdhouse. Now I'm taking a pencil and I'm going to mark my stick that's going behind the hole on the front of my birdhouse. Then I'm going to take this Dremel 4200 with a wood bit on it which I'll leave a link at the end of this video about what bit I used. And I'm gonna go ahead and cut these real quick. So on my next birdhouse, I'm only gonna attach the 3-corner logs, the front of the birdhouse logs, and then the roof. And then I'll be able to use my brad nailer to attach these small logs instead of the drill, and that'll make the process a little bit easier. Cut your top 2 first, make sure they go all the way across. After you cut those and attach those, then make your measurements for your other 2, cut those and then attach those. And that'll make sure you get a tight fit, that everything's perfect fit. When you pre-drill these holes on these small sticks, make sure that you're doing them dead center, and also make sure that you go into the thicker logs so your screw doesn't pop out of the front of the birdhouse. Here we're making a mark to make sure we're right dead center on the front, and we're taking a 1 3/8 drill bit to cut a small hole in the front. My last birdhouse, I did a little bit bigger. I did 1 1/2 inch drill bit. But they say don't go too big, because if you do, then you'll have squirrels and other type of animals in your birdhouse. I'm using my small hammer to knock a few of these nails down, and then one of the nails was so close to the outer edge of my birdhouse next to that small log that I had to use it was just a drill bit with a flat end, and then I was able to knock that nail flush. You're going to want to flush all your nails that are sticking out to make sure that they're even with the roof or below. So whenever you put your putty, it'll cover those up. Now we're going to take a small piece of medium grade sandpaper or a fine sandpaper, and we're going to go around and smooth any edges down. I'm also going to use my razor to cut any of the frizzy things off the edges. Makes it a little bit easier than sandpaper sometimes, or inside the nail holes also. Now I'm taking my small bottle of wood glue and going around and filling in a lot of these small cracks with some wood glue, and also making sure to hit the logs that are only secured with the nails. A lot of these logs were so thick that we have to use screws because the nails won't go in deep enough to the wood. But the smaller logs that we use only nails, make sure to put some of that wood glue too to help keep that nice and secure. Here we're gonna use some wood putty. This is the same color as the stain I'm using, wood putty. You need to make sure to do that. If not, then you're gonna see it through. So I'm gonna use a combination of the putty knife for the bigger spots, but mainly I'm just gonna take my finger and fill in any of those small holes throughout the birdhouse. Fill in all those holes, the screw holes, make sure to get those, and then take your finger and smooth those holes as good as you can. So I'm not a big fan of this wood putty. I'm probably gonna try to find something else that's gonna work better than this in the future. But this stuff doesn't dry hard, so you're gonna wanna make sure to get it nice and smooth with your finger and also like a damp rag. Make sure not to add too much putty to these holes and get it as smooth and as level with the log as you can at first with your finger. You first need to position your porch where you want it. After that, move it back out of the way a little bit and then add a nice glob of glue to the middle of each one of those logs. Then take your porch, put it back where you wanted it, then add a little more glue underneath to add more support to the front porch, and then let it dry for at least a couple hours. Now you're going to use either a damp paper towel or a cloth, and you're going to wipe down the tops and remove any excess putty so you can get it as smooth as you can. I'm just knocking some of the excess putty off these holes with this damp towel. Now I'm about to take this stain in this brush. Make sure you got a good brush for your stain and apply it to the birdhouse. I'm gonna add 3 coats of stain total. So not on this birdhouse, but the other birdhouse with the pine cone roof, I used a dark walnut for the roof and I used the golden oak for the logs. This one I'm using the cherry, but I didn't like the way it looked. So the first coat's cherry and then the next 2 coats are the dark walnut and the golden oak. And I would suggest using the dark walnut and the golden oak because it's gonna look beautiful. I'm just using this piece of quarter round as a straight edge and as a guide. So whenever I put these holes, it's centered on the birdhouse, but also I'm making sure that when I pre-drill this hole before I put the screw in it, that it's like right in the middle of that log. This one isn't dead center, but this log's so big that it doesn't have to be dead center. My other log on the right is a little smaller, so I had to make sure that when I pre-drill this hole, then it's pretty much dead center on that log before I put the screw in there. So I'm going to take a small piece of this electric tape and I'm going to wrap it about 4 or 5 times around the end of my string, and then I'm going to pre-drill a hole through that. So what happens here is the hole I pre-drilled isn't wide enough, so once I screwed my screw into it, it twisted the string up. So I'm going to cut another piece of string, and then I'm going to make sure that my drill bit is bigger, and that I'm going to go ahead and hand thread these screws into it, and that's going to make sure that whenever I screw it down, it doesn't twist the string up. This step is optional. If you would like to, you could put your birdhouse on a post or set it on a table somewhere outside, or choose a different way to hang it. But if you hang it, just make sure that your screws go into a solid piece of wood and it's not going to break in the future. On my other birdhouse with the pine cone roof, the roof was so thin that I took another piece of wood and put it on the under part of the roof. So whenever I put my screw through for my hook, that it hit a solid piece of wood and it's not going to break. Secured, I'm going to take this sealant and spray the outside of my birdhouse to give it an extended life. Anytime you use any spray sealant or spray paint, make sure that you're doing thin coats and you're not getting too much in one spot causing drips. After you give your birdhouse a few thin coats, go ahead and give it a little while, I'd say at least 3 or 4 hours to dry, and then we're going to see what it looks like at that point. So now that it's dry, the one on the right, I'm going to give it a few more coats of the paint on polyurethane to give it a little bit of a better, smoother, glossier look. And that's it, guys. It was that easy. So go ahead and like and subscribe. And if you have any questions, send me an email or a comment and I'll get back to you as fast as I can. These few scenes coming up is a different project I made from a few pieces of scrap wood I found and a pallet. Project was super easy, it was cheap, it was a total of about $10 to make this sign, and it turned out really good. I'm about to post the whole video soon.
love it. I love it.
Oh, that's a big one.
Hold it.
I like that. I like
Carolina birdhouse.
that.
Someone's coming